latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com. Now, from the Signature Bank Studios. If you're looking for the latest news, insight into what it means, and the sharpest opinion, there's only one station in Chicago where you can turn, and it's this one. We're AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here. The moral conscience of the left. Well, obviously, I'm talking about Greta Thunberg. When she's not saving the planet in toto, she is stopping, quote-unquote, genocidal wars, by getting on a boat and trying to deliver a couple of bags of rice and a few rolls of toilet paper to Gaza. She had a lot to say earlier in the week about the situation in Gaza.
And I could talk for a very, very long time about our mistreatment and abuses in our imprisonment, trust me, but that is not the story. What happened here was that Israel, while continuing to worsen and escalate their genocide and mass destruction with genocidal intent, attempting to erase an entire population, an entire nation in front of our very eyes. What we are doing is the bare minimum. This genocide and other genocides are being enabled and fueled by our own governments, our institutions, our media and companies. It is our responsibility to end that complicity.
Powerful. She should think about running for mayor of New York City. It's bubbled up to Trump's level the other day. And, never resisting the opportunity to issue a rhetorical shot across the bow. Trump said this about young Greta.
She's just a troublemaker, she's no longer into the environment, now she's into this. She's a troublemaker. She has an anger management problem. I think she should see a doctor. She needs anger. If you ever watch her, she's a young person. She's so angry. She's so crazy. Now you can have her. She's just a troublemaker.
Yeah, maybe Katie Porter could recommend an anger management consultant for Greta. Greta fired back after that comment. Of course she did. She's got a itchy trigger finger. I heard Donald Trump once again has expressed his very flattering opinions on my character, and I appreciate his concerns for my mental health. To Trump, I would kindly receive any recommendations you might have to deal with these so-called anger management problems, since judging by your impressive track record, you seem to be suffering from them too. Boy, again, the moral conscious, one of the intellectual North Stars of the neo-Marxists in the West. Why don't you just go with "I'm rubber and you're glue"? I mean, it's just funny. It's funny it rises to this level. It's funny that she, like these socialist Spice Girls in Congress, have such profile in our culture and our politics. I mean, they are as ignorant as they are ill-tempered. And so just to fast forward, yesterday, Trump announcing on the substance of the matter, I'm very proud to announce that Israel and Hamas have both signed off on the first phase of our peace plan. This means all of the hostages will be released very soon, and Israel will withdraw their troops to an agreed-upon line as the first steps toward a strong, durable, and everlasting peace. This is a great day for the Arab and Muslim world, Israel, all surrounding nations, and the United States of America. And he went on to thank the mediators, the countries that served as mediators. Blessed are the peacemakers, quote unquote, said the president. So here's the deal. The deal is Israel signs the ceasefire and hostage deal today by noon. The 20 living hostages will be released within 72 hours. So that's essentially by Monday, possibly sooner. The bodies of the hostages who did not make it will be returned gradually. Israeli Defense Forces will hold a majority of Gaza until the last hostage is freed, then withdraw to a buffer zone. There's also about 2,000 prisoners on the Hamas side of the equation that are going to be released, but none of them were involved in the October 7th terrorist attack. Okay, that's a quick summary for some insight into all this. We're pleased to be joined by Dominic Green. He is columnist for the Washington Examiner, contributor to the Wall Street Journal, and fellow of the Royal Historical Society. Dominic, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Hello, Dan. Thank you.
I mean, mainly I just did a little bit of a riff there on Greta so that you would have the opportunity to comment on Greta, too, because I wanted to get your keen observations about young Greta and what she represents in terms of the spoiled brat, temper tantrum-oriented left.
Well, we do say online, don't feed the troll. But in the case of Greta, we have created a monster. We've made a troll into some kind of international guru and moral sage who can lecture the President of the United States on anger management, of all things. On the other hand, she is actually a serious phenomenon because there appears to be thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, of stupid young people all over the world perfectly prepared to believe all of this and prepared to act up in our streets. And it is striking that in the last few days, while there has been a winding down of fighting in Gaza and a move towards the negotiations and the announcement we've just heard, that at the same time they've been stepping up their campaign in the streets of the West. And whatever happens in the Middle East, we will still face that challenge to basic law, order, and decency. And the fact that she's literally making it up out of thin air doesn't make a difference. It's still a big domestic political problem. And it's notable that Donald Trump heard about the breakthrough in the negotiations while he was hearing Andy Ngo and others talking about Antifa's activities in Portland, for instance. There is a serious domestic problem here. And however ludicrous Greta is, and she is a ridiculous figure and a fraud, however much so, it's still an issue.
Yeah. Well, and it's an issue, I mean, in terms of targeting Jews is an issue on college campuses here. At synagogues in Manchester, what's going on in the UK and in Western Europe, where we've been talking about this for years, going back to the height of Islamist-inspired violence against Jews in Western Europe, and there seems to be a resurgence of that. I don't have the data to support that, but certainly rhetorically, there's a resurgence of it, and it is translating into violence, as in the case of that synagogue attack.
Yes, it is, and the numbers are quite clear. When Hamas launched the attack on Israel on October the 7th, 2023, that triggered a global campaign, not just against Jews everywhere, but also against the governments and, more broadly speaking, the peoples of every single Western democracy. The result is that the number of attacks on Jews and Jewish institutions reached record heights in the 6 months after October the 7th, and the first 6 months of 2025 in Britain were just under that. And the same goes for France. And the same, of course, goes to the United States. So this is a coordinated global campaign. And however good the news is out of Israel today, and it is good news, and it is an extraordinary achievement by President Trump in particular, however good that news is, we're going to face that kind of challenge. We have people who are committed to destruction, to overthrowing even the government of the United States and creating the same kind of hell on the streets of the West as we have seen in Israel and in Gaza.
Well, and, just to fold in other examples, this didn't get the attention, hasn't gotten the attention that it deserves, but between 2020 and 2024, basically like a year after the Dobbs decision overturning Roe v. Wade, there were more than 500 Catholic churches that were vandalized or attacked in the United States. And I know that was happening in Western Europe, too. Didn't get the attention. But this is the response from the left, the political violence as the means to political ends, whether it is on abortion, on climate, on a Palestinian state. The tools that are used are always the same, and they include violence.
They do, and for political leaders on the left, they have ridden the tiger for electoral reasons in the United States and elsewhere. And it's very hard to dismount. And that's precisely the position of the Democratic Party, which, after all, Kamala Harris in the summer of 2020, when rioting was going on, they're not going to stop and they shouldn't. That's what she said. People like Keir Starmer or Emmanuel Macron, when they recognize a Palestinian state and Hamas, call it a victory, this is encouraging the forces of disorder, and it's a cynical calculation. It's playing to the lowest elements of the base, but it's a disastrous one because they have basically committed themselves to the forces of destruction, and it's very hard to turn up dressed as a fireman if you've been an arsonist the day before.
Right. I've been referencing this formulation that I read in by Douglas Murray in a piece recently, because it has such applicability to everything going on in Chicago and Illinois, given our political leadership here, which is that they don't condemn and they don't condone. I mean, so they won't condone it formally, but they also won't condemn it. They're in this gray area, as he says, and that is purposeful. Right. I don't want to wear the jacket for it because I know that will not be received well. I mean, some are dumb enough to formally wear the jacket for it, but most are sophisticated enough to understand that. I mean, I can't fully embrace that politically, but I'm going to avoid condemning it by instead just focusing attention on boogeymen that we've created, whether it's Trump or ICE or another boogeyman.
I think that's very true. And what that does also is it allows, it creates a structure for bringing in people who have been explicitly extremist by saying, that they can wear the suit now. And we're seeing exactly that in New York City with Zohran Mamdani. This is someone who celebrated the attacks of October the 7th and then puts out, increasingly mealy-mouthed, both-siding statements the closer he gets to power. That kind of person has no place running a great city. And the only reason he can go down this path that leads towards legitimacy and authority and genuine power over people's lives is if the grown-ups, as it were, do the thing of, as you're saying, not condemning and not condoning. And they have encouraged, of course, equally, to go from the sublime to the ridiculous, they've encouraged Greta Thunberg in exactly the same way.
We were talking a bit earlier in the week about the prospects in the UK, given the repudiation of the Conservatives and Sunak most recently, that gave the Brits Keir Starmer, and now the repudiation of Starmer and the increasing relevance of Nigel Farage. That there's been this sort of, since Brexit, this decade-long rebellion that sort of hasn't fully been realized, and one wonders if that's around the corner.
I believe that it is, and they don't have to call an election before late 2029. But such is the speed with which Starmer's government has hit the deck that I suspect it'll be much, much sooner. And if an election was held now, Nigel Farage and his Reform UK party would be the winners hugely. The Conservatives and Labour would both disappear. There's still a lot to play for in this. Farage has not yet built a party machine. He's a very charismatic, popular individual, and he has to turn that into that boring political machine in order for it to work. Meanwhile, the Conservatives have a machine but not much else, and you can't write them off because every few generations they reinvent themselves. And when you heard Kemi Badenoch, their leader, talking this week at their conference, she sounded very much like Farage, and you get the impression that they have finally got the message from the public. So what the details of what happens are not clear, but I would bet my shirt now on the next government being led by Farage, which is an astonishing thing because, a system like that is designed to prevent that happening. It's like Ralph Nader or something winning the U.S. presidency. Is not meant to happen. But it is happening because people have simply had enough. They're sick of it, of the government effectively cheating them on their taxes, leaving the borders open, exposing them to ridiculous and depraved crimes. It can't go on, and it won't.
Dominic Green, columnist for the Washington Examiner, contributor to the Wall Street Journal, and fellow of the Royal Historical Society. Dominic, thanks as always. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
And Dominic joined us on the turnkey.pro answer line.
Hear about the big stories of the day, then talk about them right here on Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
Dennis Prager here for AmFed Coin and Bullion. I've always been a strong believer in precious metals investment, and I've always been fascinated with rare coin collecting. But owning the wrong coins that only make dealers a lot